one school that I know of.
Okay. Yeah. Everybody went back on J6. Happy
Yeah, it's
Patriots.
kind of yeah. I told my principal happy Patriots Day today because he's a big Democrat.
Did you?
Yeah, he said no,
No.
but it is what it is.
Yeah.
He's a really nice guy. Uh,
Yeah.
he's confused politically, in my opinion.
That's my same with my son's coach. He's nicest guy, the goalie coach, great guy. He's very confused, but
Right,
he's a sweet guy.
right on. I would almost think a hockey coach would be more Republican than Democrat, but
You most are, but I'll say this, and I don't know. You know how Trump was always like ripping on the short guys.
yeah,
And this guy is real short. I think he's shorter than me. I'm 5'3". So I don't know if his issue with Trump is because of that. I
no,
don't know.
I get it.
But like I have no idea. But there's no other reason other than, probably growing up with Democratic parents and the old school, JFKs. But
Right,
I mean, you'd have to really open up your eyes to see that's not what it is now.
right.
So and then you have RFK coming over. I mean, come on. So yeah, I don't get it either. I'm kind of perplexed by it.
I hear you. Well, the world's a confusing place right now. A lot going
Absolutely.
on.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's kind of off subject, but do you have any real take on what happened in Vegas or New Orleans?
Oh gosh, I so New Orleans, I believe that guy was totally like either MK Ultra or something crazy. But the one in Vegas, I just saw the last video I saw was when he was inside that truck and his head's moving, where he supposedly took a Desert Eagle and blew his head off. Which with a
Right.
Desert Eagle, you're not moving your head right before a blast. If you had killed yourself, your head would be
Yeah.
gone,
Right.
and slumped over. So there is so much there that it's fun to read and watch. I'll say that for right now.
I hear you. I hear you.
I mean I was thinking the other day when he was talking about those drones, and I'm thinking those drones going to show up in DC on an inauguration day, and what are they going to do? This
Yeah.
gravity thing he's talking about. So it kind of gave me a little bit of like an eerie feeling, but we'll never know. We'll never know because all they do is cover shit up constantly. Even with J6, we want the truth. We want the truth. Well, there are so many tentacles and people that are involved and people that know that I don't know if we'll ever get the truth. I'm hoping Trump comes in, strikes a deal with the DOJ, the FBI, and says, listen, you better make this right with these people. And, I don't know. Because we don't even know about 9/11. We don't know about JFK still.
Right.
If people think we're going to know about what's going on with, J6, a year from now, we're never going to know still. But, I mean, I know. I'm sure you know. So, I mean, and my family knows, and people that I love and care about, know. My attorney even said to me last week when I did an interview with our local paper, they were supposed to run a story about me. Well, they nixed the story because they saw how well I was doing and how egregious everything was done to me. So they didn't even run the story. That's how they're so liberal where I'm from, Pittsburgh. But he even said, he goes, Jen, you're right about everything you said. And from 4 years ago to now, I told him it was a setup, all this stuff. And he's like, you're right. Because he didn't think that at first. Now he's thinking it. And he's not like a huge Trump guy, but he's conservative. But he's
Right.
even saying, but you know, I don't know if we'll ever know the truth about anything. They've been lying to us forever, unfortunately.
I hear you. I mean, you definitely believe it was probably peaceful. You believe that the protesters were provoked.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely. Yeah, you
that would
don't.
be your stance.
It's 110%. I mean, I walked up on that lawn and when I was walking up, I was kind of confused because I'm seeing the scaffolding and I'm like, okay, is this where we're going to have the rally? And then I just saw gases in the air And of course I'm following Kenny, because I told Kenny, even to this day, like, you're my ride and die. Like, if I'm going somewhere, you're my first, you're my draft pick, number one. So we just start walking up, and then that's when I saw, people just throwing stuff. I saw cops shoving people. And then that's when I started seeing I think it was a DC Metro. Yeah. Police coming in, and they were just hitting people with batons, just walking through. And I'm like, oh my God, oh my God. And that's when this gentleman, who he was dressed all in brown. I don't know who he is. I see him in videos, really big guy. He must have took mercy on me. I don't know if he knew something. He was somebody that knew what was going to happen, but he picked me up off the ground and put me next to him and said, you're going to get hurt. And then that's when the DC police and the protesters just started just going after each other, like punching each other and stuff. And then after that, the tear gas can came right at my feet, and I fell over the wall. And then that was when I went in. I was done. I was like, get me the hell out of here, because I didn't want to get hit with, God forbid, what else next. I mean, if I would have got hit with a baton, that would have broke a rib, would have broke my nose. I'm a very petite person, so it wasn't. I didn't see the police helping anyone that day. It wasn't like a BLM protest where you saw on TV where they're spitting in the officer's face and they're just standing there taking it. No, these officers weren't taking it. They were giving it back. And I'm not saying everybody was angels there, but
Yeah, right. Well, do you feel like most of the people that were causing trouble were provocateurs, or do you think a lot of them were actual just people who got riled up?
I think the provocateurs were the ones that were throwing things because they knew what to do to get it riled up. I honestly, I think when I was walking down Constitutional Boulevard, everyone was in a great mood. We were all happy. No one was, fucking around and seeing what happened. Everyone was cool. It was when we got down there, that's when I was like, and honestly, I thought it was Antifa that was doing it. Now I'm thinking back, I'm like, there was no way. That was undercover cops, undercover informants doing that, because they had a plan in mind, and it was done pretty well to get us. And I remember when I was climbing up to get up the stairwell, there was a gentleman there dressed all in brown. He was just like helping us all up. And Kenny even said, he goes, I think that guy, like, years later when I got to talk to him, he's like, I know that guy had to have been like a Fed or undercover, because he was ready. He was just like, everyone get up. And then there was guys with bullhorns saying, come in, and I'm like, who the hell was going to bring a bullhorn here? I didn't, what I mean? Like, in gas mask, like, you don't bring a gas mask unless you know that's going to happen,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No, I hear you. Some people definitely look like they were dressed for a different event than most of the other people.
Yeah, I was wearing a Trump jersey that I had custom made. It was a hockey jersey. It had Trump's head on it, face on it on the front, and it said Trump 20 on the back. It was paper thin. I had maybe like an Under Armour thing underneath. I was not ready for any of the stuff that was going down that day. So, yeah, I 100% believe that it was definitely a setup. And do I think a lot of the cops were in on it? Probably not. I think they were just so overwhelmed because they were just never told what was going to happen, and I've been around a lot of cops. I've only been around a few cops that I've been like, wow, they are very cool and collective under pressure. Because, it's a hard job and you do get the best of you. But there has been many that I've seen in situations that I'm like, could have been handled better. I'm just saying. And I'm a daughter of a cop. I was married to a cop, and my uncle is a cop. So I've been around them. So definitely. That was pretty out of hand. And I think a lot of people took a lot of pride in hurting us too that day.
Your friend that you just mentioned, that picture kind of became a big part of your story, right? Did that actually cause issues in your marriage, or is that what the angle that they were trying to use that for, in your opinion?
Well, it definitely did, because I got arrested on a Thursday, and the whole news cycle, the whole week, every news station was me being arrested. And then by Sunday, it kind of died down, and on weekends, news is pretty much, there's not a lot of news to report. So of course I was on there all weekend. So by Sunday, when it kind of calmed down, I remember my ex-husband had to stay at his friend's house because the FBI told him, you cannot be with her. You can't be around her. And then they told me, you can't be around guns. You can't be around anything. And I'm like, okay. And I had pled guilty, but they immediately put me on Fed supervision. So I was like, okay. Sunday, my former sister-in-law sends my husband, who she knows is completely devastated. We're completely like overwhelmed with what was going on. She sends him an article from the Daily Mail, and it says love triangle. Hero cop divorces his wife after being down to the Capitol with another man. And I'm telling you, he was so embarrassed. He was like, now everyone thinks you're cheating on me. And as a man, I get that. Like that's a huge ego, thing. And I was just like, I couldn't even comprehend what I was seeing. I'm like, are you serious? And then Inside Edition that week, and People Magazine, and then Snapchat. I'm on Snapchat, and I'm seeing me on Snapchat. And I have stepchildren who are on Snapchat. I have my children. So he didn't believe it. But I think what got to him was the millions upon millions of people that were reading it believed it. He had colleagues that were like, what, Jen was down there with another guy, and it made it look really, really bad. And honestly, they were like, oh, they had secret Facebook messages. Like they try to play it up. And I'm like, what's secret about that? Release them. You'll see exactly what we're talking about. I was commenting on the rally, like, hey, are we getting a tour? Are we getting a bus? Are we riding on a bus? Or where's the hotel rooms at? That's what we're talking about. Like release what we were talking about. We weren't talking about, hooking up in these rooms, I always laugh. I'm like, the only man I was down there to see, was Trump. Like, yeah, that's it. I wasn't down there for any other guy. But yeah, it did. To this day, he'll say like, great, everyone, was going to read about you down there cheating on me again. I'm like, but I wasn't. And he knows that. But when you care about what people think, it does affect you. Me, I don't care. I don't. I stopped giving a fuck a long time ago. To have to explain to people that I've known for years that is not true, that sucks because I'm like, me. When do I have time to do that? I was raising 5 boys at the time. I had 3 stepsons and I had 2 sons. When did I have time to cheat on my husband? I was very proud of him. I was extremely proud of him and the work he was doing. And I wouldn't disrespect that. But of course, they ran with it because they saw we got separated and filed for divorce. But that was just a cover to keep his job. But they took it and, we took it and did, a thing with it, and then they took it and turned it around and did their own thing with it. So.
Yeah, it's definitely probably not the fairest thing in the world that probably happened to anyone.
Now, on top of being said, you're a traitor to the country, you're an insurrectionist, you're a white supremacist. And then you're an adulteress. I was like, wow, they got me on everything. And then they were like, we're murderers because we're down there killing cops. And I'm like, oh my God, like I never in a million years, I would have thought that would happen. But
potentially it was horrible for him too if he had anything going on, possibly. I mean, that it could have the same result, not great.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So, and then Kenny, who I was down there with, he had a fiance at the time. And, I hadn't talked to Kenny since everything went down. And I kept thinking like, oh my gosh, that poor woman, thinking I'm down, like Kenny and I have been friends forever. And then she's probably thinking, really, were they friends? What were they doing? And she kicked him out immediately. I mean, he was out, so we had a lot of bad stuff going on, not just waiting for our arrest, getting sentenced, waiting for all these, job loss. We had this thing at home, where my stepchildren were destroyed by it too. They didn't trust me anymore. They didn't know what to believe. And it did. I haven't talked to my stepchildren in, oh gosh, 4 years. Yeah, to pretty much to today. I text them when I was down there, and they were asking me, Jennie, are you okay? And I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. It's the last time I talked to them.
How long after the 6th, when it all happened, was it before you were on the news?
So they came for me November 18th, 2021. They already knew I was there because my husband was down at the FBI and they were watching the news, and he had said to his supervisor, Jennie's there. And his supervisor looked at him like, what? And so, and I was already
Right.
So January 6th, they knew. So yeah, it was, they knew before I got arrested in March. So it was just waiting for the arrest. So I pretty much knew the end of January, my time was up.
Right on.
Yeah. So the FBI called me on the phone, and they came to my house, and Ellis, my eldest son, answered the door, told them I wasn't home. So I was working in my office, and he said, Mom, he goes, I don't want to make you work. He goes, but the FBI just came here. And I'm like, what? So that turned into kind of a mess. And then I get a phone call, and there's this person yelling at me on the phone, like, hey, we just arrested Grayson, and were you inside the Capitol? And I'm like, no. What do you think I say? Yeah, no, because if I say yes, you're going to come get me. And I don't even know who they were. And I was so confused because I'm like, why would they call me on the phone? And why wouldn't my husband know that they were coming to the house? They work with him in the office. Like, what I couldn't understand that. So, I hung up with them, and I called my husband and I said, hey, Ellis said the FBI were here, and I got a phone call, someone asking about me being inside the Capitol and yelling at me about Kenny being arrested. I had no idea Kenny got arrested. And he's like, I'll call you back. And then that's when he found out this other squad that they formed, that they took off violent crimes, FBI agents, and put them on a J6, commit thing. They made them go over and come talk to me. And they didn't tell him.
That would hypothetically be his coworkers and friends.
Oh, yeah. Coworkers and friends. Yeah. People that months before that I was sitting at a party with, having drinks.
Right.
So yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Unfortunately, in our previous discussion, I've used this already, but betrayal doesn't come from an enemy.
No, it doesn't. And the thing is that makes me most angry about it, they knew I didn't do anything wrong. They knew I didn't do anything wrong. And, another thing that I discussed with Mike, years later was, since I wasn't so violent and I just walked around and they knew why I was in there, why did you come after me the first 3 months of it? Why didn't you just let us have our life and then come for me after he retired? I don't know, like, give us some grace. I don't know, because I'm just, not that I'm saying I deserve that, but these are his colleagues. They know us. They know our life. They know me. They know I'm not a violent person. I'm not going to be they didn't have to worry I was going to go and storm another Capitol and across the country. So,
right.
And I'm thinking that's a lot of other people, J6ers, they looked at my whole life. They interviewed people before they arrested me to find out more about me. And everyone was like, yeah, she's normal. She loves Trump, but she's normal. So that's why I'm like, why did you do all this? You just did it to be assholes. You did it for shock and awe, like you said on 60 Minutes. And that's what makes me so angry, because they knew once they did this to me, it was going to ruin our marriage. We couldn't be together. I mean, and then when I was on probation for 3 years, basically, that you can't have a marriage if you can't live with someone for 3 years. Right. The last night I slept with my husband in bed as husband and wife was March 17th. And after that, it was done. Over a misdemeanor.
Right.
Trespassing, they call it, which wasn't because they let me in.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, you know.
yeah. The way they can word things in the legal system is amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's it's pretty disgusting. And when I see other groups that have different opinions than mine, they come into the Capitol, they sit there, they scream, they yell, they have signs. I did none of that. I've not seen one of their names on the news. I've not seen one of their jobs lost. I think they got summary offenses and maybe a $50 fine. I think years ago when Trump was first inaugurated down in DC, there was an issue with some protesters and they actually got a settlement because they got arrested and they got a settlement. So you have to look at this as this was total warfare against us just to get to Trump later, because they thought once they did this January 6th thing, Trump, and he did for a couple months, he kind of put his, tail between his legs and had to leave and go. And
Right.
we all did. Like I kind of did too. Like I had to get off of everything because I was really outspoken, and man, I shut the fuck up real quick because first of all, I couldn't say anything, and second of all, I was like, it was so bad. Even my conservative friends, they were like, they didn't know what to do with, like they were just like kind of horrified. And they would say to me, well, Jenny, why did you do that? And I'm like, what do you mean? Why did I do that? I didn't do anything, and
Right.
now years later, they're like, oh yeah. Okay. And now they're like, oh yeah, we knew the truth. No, you didn't. You fucking like, you were like, yeah, like scolding me, now you know the truth. Okay. No,
Right.
the people that have been in the trenches for the last 4 years, I mean, you can come over, but don't come to me and act like you've been here the whole time, because I know where your action stood, and you weren't giving me money, you weren't checking on me, you
Right.
weren't coming in and making sure my kids were okay. It was all me, So you can just stop right now. But I mean, I still love you, but don't act like you've been fighting the way we've been fighting, because you weren't.
I hear you. Do you feel like when you meet new people, like are you concerned that they're gonna find out what happened with you and how that's gonna affect things?
Um, Sometimes. I mean, I have met a lot of new people through hockey because my son, he plays, and we were going to a prep school. And last year, his team, I met a dad, and he was so cool. And I just told him who I was, and oh my god, he couldn't hug me. I mean, he couldn't love me more. And then the other dads started knowing who I was, and they were really cool with me. Some people kind of were standoffish. I'm not gonna lie, the wives were kind of like, oh my god, but usually I get along with guys so great. I'm kind of like one of the guys, so they've been pretty cool, everyone.
Right
um,
on.
if I find out somebody's like a patriot and we become cool, I'll kind of tell them my story if I feel like, I want to open up a little bit. So this year, I've only told like one person, and they kept it they kept it close. They haven't said anything to anybody yet. But, for the most part, yeah, it's kind of worrisome. I work at places. I mean, my one job, they looked me up and they they've asked me straight out, like, what did you do there? And I told them, and I said I finished my sentencing. I've cooperated. I took it like a champ, and that's it. You want to hire me or don't? And still got hired. So
Right on.
yeah, so it's cool. I mean, the one job I got right after I got arrested when I got fired from the VA, I literally found it on a job board on Gab for unvaccinated people. And I posted on there, hey, I'm on Vax, but I'm also a J6er. I just got fired from my job. I'm a single mom. Is there anybody who's hiring? And this lady, the HR lady, reached out to me. She was an ex military, and she worked at this company, and she said, give me your number. Next day, I get a phone call, and I got the job. And they matched my salary at the VA.
Nice. Heck
So
yeah.
yeah, it was pretty cool. So I've had some good I've had some good interactions with people. So not like other J6ers I hear about, but it's mostly men that I hear that are getting like a lot more attacked, mostly like ex-military, the vets they're going after so hard, you know. And listen, I miss my job at the VA. I would take that back in a heartbeat. And I was supposed to go back, and they told me if I go back, they could fire me again for the same thing. So I'm like, okay, well then I'm not going to go back. You know, why am I going to do it to myself again? You know, so, and they'll do the fingerprinting, and they're going to see that I had that charge, and then they can say, no, we don't want you back. So I'm kind of waiting to see if maybe when Trump gets back in, that I could maybe see if there's any leniency to get me back to my job there. But at this point, I'm kind of not really hopeful for that, unfortunately. So.
Yeah, everything's so politically divided at this point, I think. So it probably just really depends on who's in the hiring position, right?
Yeah,
or
yeah.
boss.
Yeah. Where I was at before, I was in behavioral health dealing with, PTSD vets that were going through a lot. And my supervisor was cool. His supervisor is the one who wasn't. She was, say, a big BLM supporter. And she made a post on January 6th. I was not at work that day, obviously. She made a post on January 6th that anybody that was down there that day, you need to go after them, and how we were all racist and this and that. And she posted it on her Facebook during work hours at a federal job. So somebody sent me the post, and ultimately down the road, probably about 2 years later, she actually had to resign from her position. And I think it was other things that she was doing. She wasn't a very good supervisor, but she wasn't mine. And they had her come in, and as a trophy, they let her fire me. And I remember I remember being on the call, and I'm like, why is she firing me? Where's my supervisor at? You know, and it was so ironic. I'm like, oh, she gets a trophy. It's me, you know? So that kind of made me a little bit mad. But then when she had her day, like I did, you know, she was let go as well. So karma's a bitch, huh?
Yeah. So could you describe like what happened to you really before you went inside? I seen somewhere in the documentation that they were basically saying that you should have never went inside. You should have went the opposite way. But I assume there was a wall of people behind you, and it was, if you were in the front of all that mess, it was probably closer to go in through the door, right?
Oh, well, so Kenny had gone in, and I was standing out there, and I was like, what am I going to do? And I remember like thinking, I think I have to go in, because on the other side of me to my left, there was all these cops fighting, tear gassing again. And then on the other side, the FBI said that I could have went that way. How the fuck do I know to go that way? I had never been up on that area before. I guess they knew that area because they didn't have informants fucking with everybody, that I could have went that way. Okay. So I just went in because I was watching people single filely going in, and there was a cop standing there just letting us do it. So I was like, I'm going in. First of all, Kenny went in, and I told you, he's my ride or die, my number one draft choice. I'm not leaving him because, first of all, he's a big guy, and he's my ride home. You know, like, not to be rude, I love Kenny. Yeah. He was my ride home. I had to like keep kind of track, and like I got to keep track of Kenny too, because Kenny, you know, he's a wild card sometimes. So I want to make sure he was okay, and I know he wanted to make sure I was okay. And I was like, you know what? I'm going in. Like, they're letting us all in. Let's go. Let's see what's going on in here, you know? And when I walked in, everyone was like, you know, yelling our house, you know, and it was a really great experience. And I had a better experience in there, the 45 minutes I was in there, than the 15 minutes I had outside, you know, because I just gotten my ass kicked with tear gas. I mean, if you've ever swallowed tear gas or whatever that CS gas they were, I mean, I'm telling you, I couldn't breathe. I mean, I honestly started having a panic attack because I couldn't get my breath. So yeah, they can say all day I should have did this, should have did that. You know, what if my mom had two balls? Like, what does that even mean? You know, like, it is what it is. I did it, but the crime, what the time does not justify the crime. You know what I mean? Like, you giving me 3 years of probation, 50 hours of community service, a fine, and then on top of that, you give me jail time. That's unheard of.
Right.
It's unheard of. And it wasn't because of what I did. It's because of how I acted. They kept saying, you're not apologetic enough. Well, no, I'm not, because I didn't do anything wrong. So I'm like, I wear my heart on my sleeve. Yeah, I can't fake it. And I'm not going to walk. Yeah, I'm not going to walk in a courtroom and cry like a little bitch because of something you want me to cry and be sad about. I'm not. No, I'm not going to do that. So too bad. Deal with it. And they did. They they threw the book at me.
They dealt with it in the worst way possible for you, right?
Yeah, I kind of deserved it, I guess.
I hear you. But they charged you initially with like 4 counts, right? And you only really got charged with 1 at the end.
Yeah, I had to plead to that. So I was ready to go to DC, and I think I told you when we talked earlier, my son was really sick. Both my sons have autoimmune diseases, endocrine issues. So Marty, who is my attorney, I've known Marty forever. He was actually a friend. Just happens he's a federal, defense attorney. He said, Jen, we can't go to trial because, first of all, it's a RICO thing, and you're probably going to be, down there for a couple weeks. And I couldn't justify leaving to go down to DC for a couple weeks. And second of all, I couldn't afford it. I mean, it would have been hundreds upon extra hundreds of $1,000s. And he said, you're going to get convicted. And then he's like, they're probably going to throw in a felony because you lied to the FBI. So that was kind of threatened, because they said when they called, I knew it was the FBI and I lied. Well, okay. I'll just take the fifth on that.
Right. I hear you.
But yeah, they were threatening that, and I knew they were. So I was like, and they did that to everybody. Like, if you were not taking a plea deal, they were trumping up your charges. And I knew, Kenny got charged with something, obstruction, and I was standing right where he was at, where he got charged with that felony. So I'm thinking, well, if they see that video, I'm standing right next to him where this obstruction is. So I could possibly get that too. So I just took the plea deal, and I was promised no jail time. And then that's when Matthew Graves came in and re-looked at my case and my interviews and said, no, this bitch isn't apologetic enough. We're giving her 2 weeks. And that's how that came about.
Right on.
And then when I went in front of Judge Sullivan, he's the one that said, yeah, you deserve 2 weeks, plus you deserve more. So I'm grateful that he didn't, because there were some judges that, overcharged too, like whatever the DOJ said, they went above it. So he didn't, which I was grateful for. There was one thing he did for me that was nice, but he definitely took into consideration what they were going to do, and he went through with it.
You'll have to refresh my memory. Did you have actual jail time or?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you did. Right on.
Yeah, I did. So I went to a federal jail. They were trying to get me to go to Allegheny County jail, and I knew that was not going to be a place for me. So being as savvy as I could, I called DC after I got sentenced, and I said, hey, I need to go to Butler County. Butler County is where that's where he got shot at, up in Butler County. It's huge Trump country. And I knew that prison system up there, that federal jail, would be more kind to me. So they said, oh, okay. Yeah, you can go to Butler. That's fine. They're like, it's a lot further than Allegheny. I said, no, it's okay. I'll drive. So I got into Butler, and let me tell you, for going to jail, it sucks, but they were so kind to me, and they kept me isolated. I really wasn't with anyone. They kept me in a holding cell, and I would just stay, like where you were I don't know if you know.
Yeah. Well, I hear you.
I don't know if you know, but there's a holding area, and that's where they kind of kept me. And they put me right by the desk so they could watch me, see if I was okay. They put me right by the TV. They, of course, had to go through all the processes, but after, a while, it became bearable, so, and it was so funny because when I'm there, my ex-husband's coming in there too, bringing child sex predators, in the same jail, and like they're seeing, Jennie Heinl, and then there's Mike Heinl bringing in,
Right.
yeah. So it's like, oh gosh, yeah. So it was a terrible experience, obviously, but it was doable. Like, but if I would have went to the other jail system, I would have been treated probably like those horror stories you hear in the gulag. That would have been me. I'm not even saying that because I'm being dramatic. I'm not being dramatic. I'm being real with you. It would not have been good for me at all.
That's not good.
No. You kind of like, I guess I when all this stuff is happening, I'm always like thinking ahead. So that was one thing. I'm like, Marty, where's another federal jail that I can go to other than Allegheny? And he's like, Butler. I'm like, well, let's go.
Right.
And I called them as soon as I got sentenced. I was calling, requesting jail time. I think they probably thought I was nuts. Like, why is she already calling? Like I literally, probably about 15 minutes later, I got in my car and I called down to DC and asked for that jail and told them I will start my jail time now, so that they wouldn't change their mind.
I hear you. When you were inside the Capitol, did they let you walk back out pretty freely, or do you feel like they tried to keep you in there longer than necessary?
No, the funny part is in the rotunda, there's doors that lead out where I went out to these stairs. Those doors were completely open the whole time. So people were just coming in and out the whole time.
Right on.
Like it was crazy. There were just people standing in the doorway, like, oh, yawning, and then like, oh, go back in. Like it was insane. There's people in there smoking weed. There's people in there playing the guitar. That's why I thought it was so ridiculous that they came after us, because I'm like, were you there? Like, there were so many different characters there that day. It didn't even make sense why you're coming after us. You know what I mean? So yeah. There was no. Now, if they would have closed the doors and said, okay, haha, motherfuckers, you're caught, then I would have been like, oh shit. No, that did not happen.
Right on. You would definitely do this experience again if you had a time machine.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I'm a little nuts. I think I told you that. I would. It was meant to be. I don't have any regrets. I mean, I feel bad for a lot of things that had happened. My family had been honestly, my family has never been more proud of me. They have day one. My mother and father have never said, "Oh my God, your embarrassment." And my mother works with law enforcement. She's an animal resource officer. So she has 60 different townships with police officers she deals with every day. Not once did my mother go to work and someone like bash me. They all love me. My mother loves me, supports me. My stepdad was the sheriff of our county we grew up in. Nothing but respect. Yeah. And my sisters, I have 4 sisters. All of them have been on my side since day one. So I got very lucky. The only thing, the only people that really haven't been there, obviously is my stepkids and my ex-husband. But, there's a lot of feelings there where I can see where they're upset. They saw their dad go through a lot, of emotions, and he had to work down there still. He had to be around that. Like, I was kind of, after I got, arrested by them, I kind of was removed from it, but he had to go to that office every day and be around those people that destroyed our lives. Talk about a mind fuck every day.
Yeah.
So, I give him a lot of grace. I still love him to death, but it's obvious that God had different plans for us right now.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah.
I mean, you never know what happens. Like Philip, my guest Philip the other day said, God works in mysterious ways.
He does. As a little girl, I used to think, oh, it would be cool to be like on TV and be famous. But, I was on TV, but I'm not famous. I'm probably more infamous. But yeah, it is. It is. And like I said, I would never take it back. I really can't. So you just have to
Right.
grow from it, and you have to build on it, because like if you live in the past and say, oh, I should have done this and should have done that. I know so many people like that, and they are not growing as people at all. They're just stuck. And
Right.
I've never been a person where I'm like, oh, I remember high school. It was so great. Oh, I wish I could go back. No, fuck that. Like every year, every decade, I want to be better,
Yeah.
and that's just how I've been. And I'm grateful for that, because I think if I was built differently, I probably wouldn't have handled this very well.
You seem pretty positive for everything you've had to go through.
Yeah, trying.
I hear you. I hear you. It's all you really can do, right? I mean,
Yeah, yeah, and not to say that, don't think they're not going to try to come after us again or do stupid stuff. I mean, they still hate us, and they're still bitter, and if they can't get to Trump, who knows? I mean, I'm not really that frightful of them. I never really was. The more I was just like, when are you going to do it? Like, that's where my PTSD was kicking in. Like, when are you going to come? When are you going to come?
right.
Because I just wanted to get it over with, because I knew it was coming. I'm just like, please just do this so I can get it over with. Um, but and then you wish, like, well, maybe they'll just send a summary in the mail, But as I saw the momentum of it, I was like, yeah, they're not going to do that.
I hear you. When they showed up, did they show up pretty heavy, or did they just send like one or two people to pick you up?
Um, I got a heads up they were coming that morning. So my husband went to a raid that morning at 5 a.m. and he came back at 7 and said they're coming. And within 5 minutes they're at the house.
Jeez.
Yeah. Um, there was four of them. One of them was a really good friend. The other two were colleagues of my husband. They didn't arrest me in the house. They took me outside and put the handcuffs on me in front of my neighbors, which they didn't have to do that. They did though.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't as crazy as some of the other stories, but I don't think they would have done that, because if they would have came in the dark of night, being that my husband is a task force officer, has, weapons, FBI
Right.
weapons.
Yeah.
There could have been a lot of damage, because he would have been frightened, and who knows. So
Yeah.
I think they had to kind of give a heads up with his position there too. And I think they did it with some grace as well, to kind of soften what the hell was going to go down.
For him, you mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. For him. Me,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
didn't give
Right
a
on.
shit about. Yeah. They didn't care about me. They were just, and that's fine. They were trying to give some kind of grace towards it, but yeah, they weren't pointing guns, and my children were not there.
Right
So
on.
I made sure of that. We'll just
So they
say
definitely didn't handcuff you outside to spare the kids from seeing it.
no, no, no. My neighbors saw it. It was pretty embarrassing, but but it didn't matter, because 5 hours later it was all over the news.
Right.
And then reporters were at my house, leaving their cards, waiting for me. Meanwhile, I went back to Washington County, where I grew up, and went to my mom's. And then I came back probably at 3 a.m. and snuck around my deck to get into my house. And then I just stayed there the whole weekend. And
You
just
had the media camped out in front.
yes, yep,
Then? But that's enjoyable.
yeah. So I had to sneak, and I ran through like the backyards and went into my house and just stayed there, and didn't leave for 3 days.
Jeez.
Mm-hmm.
Is that because they were outside for those
Yeah.
3 days? Oh,
Yeah, and then the only time I went outside was to go meet with my probation officer, and he did warn me. He's like, just don't talk to anybody. He's like, even your friends. He goes, because you're very high profile right now, and whatever you say will be used against you. So,
right.
like, I could not talk this freely like I am with you now, because it would have been, I probably would have got 2, 3, 4, 5 years in jail, because that's
Jeez.
just how they are. They just,
Right.
if you thumb your nose at them and smile and think they're a joke, they get even more mad. And it's like, well, you are. I mean, I can't help it. Like, that's how I feel. I mean, every time I went into the courtroom when I had to go to DC, I smiled. I pretended like I was, at a prom, like the prom queen. Like I just smiled and I never let them see me sweat. I didn't cry once. I think one time I almost rolled my eyes and I had to stop myself because I went like this and I was like, oh God, I'm on camera. I can't roll my eyes. And I put my eyes down because they said the United States of America versus Jennifer Heinl. And I was like, oh my God. And then I had to go, oh my God, I can't do that.
Right.
Really
Yeah.
yeah. And my lawyer, actually, Marty had told me, he goes, stop smiling. He goes, stop laughing and smiling. He's like, because they are getting mad when you do that. And I'm like, okay. So, it's like, so I would just sit there, like after like maybe my last, moment in the court, I was like, trying to not to make any facial.
I get it.
I'm probably one of the happiest J6ers. Because I see everybody else and everyone's so angry, but like, I guess I deal with things with humor and grace where, you can't be so serious about it because it's not a serious thing. I mean, what they try to do, yeah, but like when you look at it, I don't think they're serious at all. I think they're weak and they overreached because if they didn't do this, I think a lot of people wouldn't open their eyes to start looking at Trump and like, wow, like this could happen to me next. Like I think they overplayed this huge. I really do.
So based on that, it's almost like you're saying that you feel like a political martyr, if you will, to a certain degree. I mean, maybe not as much as others, but
yeah, not. I mean, I think they made me into that, and I think I took it and I turned it around to where my life has actually gone a lot better than they wanted it to. I think they totally wanted to break me. They wanted to see me become a horrible person in society. I think they wanted to see me denounce Trump. I think they wanted to see me fail as a mother and as a productive person, and they didn't. So yeah, in a way, I feel like a little bit of a martyr, and I feel like I want people to know that, I've gone through, a death of a marriage, the death of my job, losing my home, losing my vehicle, losing my son all during this too. And I'm able to still get up every day and fight. And, they didn't break me. I mean, they tried. But there was not one time I thought to myself, I have to like just give up and I have to just give in and I got to change my mind about this. This isn't right. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they're right. Not one time. And, I sometimes say maybe I'm a little retarded, but, I honestly think in my heart that that I know the truth. And I think, if it wasn't so strong in my heart and my mind, like it would have, this would have stopped. And I probably would have, got less jail time and maybe not been, maybe still been married, who knows?
right.
But I couldn't change who I was.
No,
My
I get
husband
it.
always, my husband's nickname for me was Scorched Earth.
That could be
Because
horrible, though.
but when I believe in something, I believe in it, and I will go scorched earth because that's how passionate I am.
I
When
get
it
it.
comes to
Yeah.
things. So
Yeah. I was gonna wait till like the very last question to ask you. That way, it was an easy spot to cut out if you didn't want to discuss it. But since you just brought it up, did you lose your son like when you were in jail or during court process?
No, it was after I got sentenced. So, but he was very, very sick. He was in the ICU right when they were screwing with me about giving me jail time, and they knew this. And they knew he was sick. My son, he was 90 pounds, and Ellis before that was about 190 pounds. So he was very, very sick and couldn't figure out what was going on with him. But they still to this day don't know why this autoimmune disease has attacked his joints, his muscles. But they knew. So what happened was I was sentenced to jail and I had done a couple days. And then after Ellis got really sick and then eventually passed away, they let me not go back into jail for a while. And my probation officer was pretty cool. He said, just take your time and then call me when you're ready. But you have only so many years to get this done. And if you don't get it done, you have to stay on probation. So I was able to, be there. Thank God, because that's what I think about when Marty was like, Jen, you're going to have like a year in jail or maybe more if you fight this. And I think back to when he said that I could have been in a jail somewhere when, my son was very sick, and then, he would have passed away. I definitely would have been, incarcerated somewhere.
Yeah, I imagine in normal circumstances, that's probably one of the hardest things a person would have to deal with. So I can't imagine the added stress, what it would be like.
Yeah, it was a lot of stress, going in and out of the hospital, visiting him in the ICU, asking for permission to do shit on top of it with my other son, having them come to my house and give me random drug tests. And I, make sure my son wasn't there. He was in school when they did it, because I didn't want them seeing that. I didn't want,
Right.
it was bad enough, they saw what they saw and had to move and lose their home. And then on top of it, you have these strangers with guns and, badges coming in, telling your mom to pee in a cup. Meanwhile, I've never failed a drug test in my life and never was accused of doing drugs, but I had to
Right.
take all these stupid drug tests. But whatever, it's part of the process, I guess.
Yeah. Make it as uncomfortable as possible for you, right?
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I just smile and take it. Give
Yeah.
me another, sir.
I hear you. Do you feel, I mean, I know in earlier discussion, you've mentioned that the pardon really doesn't do much for you, obviously, with you being done with everything. Uh, are you big? I've seen on X, they've been really kind of pushing the payments for Jan Sixers. Is that something you'd be interested in?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The pardon does nothing for me. It's cool to have. Yeah, cool story. But yeah, I lost a lot. Rebuilding. I have no savings anymore from all this. I would like to have something. Not that it would go to me, but it would go to my son one day. And also the plans I was going to have for my other son, like, doing scholarships and memorials for him to help other children and other athletes. My son was a huge athlete. He was a wrestler. He was a two-time state champion, in freestyle and in I'm sorry, in folk.
Oh, right.
But yeah, so I wanted to do all these scholarships and all these wonderful things for him, but I can't, because I like I told you, I work two jobs. I have to support myself. I have one income coming in. So
Right.
yeah, I would like that, because then my son could benefit from what they put him through, because he has been affected tremendously, and not just me, but that money would go to him and maybe generations afterwards. If, say, we get 10, $20 million, some people deserve more.
Right.
I mean, I was in the thick of it too, and I was able to kind of pick myself up, but don't think I don't want some kind of reparations for it. If they're giving reparations out in California for 6, 7 generations down the road, hello,
Right.
I think what you done to us was egregious. No one's ever going to say we didn't lose a lot. I can't put it in monetary, but like, I know I don't have a retirement because I was supposed to retire with my husband. There's all these plans I had that are all gone now, and I'll be working two jobs for a very long time to recover, to even have a nest egg, because it's gone. So yeah, I would definitely be on board with that.
Right on. Is there any real message you'd like to get out to people about your experience, or what maybe they've been told to believe as opposed to what you've experienced?
I would just tell people, don't believe everything you hear. Let us have our voice. I think that people should seek out different news sources too. If you're watching CBS, CNN, even Fox News, you're never going to hear the truth. Be a free thinker. If you question something, it's not a bad thing. Just keep questioning. You'll get to the truth. I would like to say that every single J6er needs a pardon because it was a total setup and we did not get a fair shake. Even the ones that were violent, you don't know why they're violent. They didn't get their video evidence and they didn't get a fair trial. No one got a fair trial in DC. So I definitely want that message to be heard for sure.
You're pretty excited about Trump, right? Do you plan on being there?
Oh yeah, I'm going. I'm going to the rally and the inauguration, so I'm super stoked about it.
The rally's on the 19th, right?
Yep.
Right on.
Got my tickets already, so.
Right on. Oh, I guess I didn't realize it was a ticketed event.
Yeah, you just got to sign up online, and
it's not capped off at a certain amount of people or anything.
Not yet.
Right on. It should be a good time, right?
It should be. I'm hoping for a good time. I'm always up for a good time.
Do you think there will be a lot of Jan Sixers there that you'll remember?
I think there's going to be quite a few. There's quite a few too that are not going. They're staying away from it, and there's a lot that can't go because they're under supervision and been told they cannot attend. I've already heard that there's been ones that have already been denied. So.
Well, yeah, I get it. Mm-hmm. Oh, they're not allowed to attend.
They're not allowed. When I was on probation, I was not allowed to go to DC at all.
Right on. Jeez. I guess I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I was not allowed to DC.
Is there anything that you feel like you would like to put out there that I didn't ask you about?
No, I mean, I think we went through the gamut of it. I mean, I would like people to understand that I'm not a insurrectionist, a homewrecker, a white supremacist. I'm just I love my country. I love my family. And I just want people to understand that we are real people. They treated us like animals and we deserve respect and we deserve to be heard and our stories to be heard. So I hope once everything kind of calms down, we will get the story out so people understand exactly what we went through, not just that day, but the aftermath of it.
I get it. Hopefully people hear more stories and then they can figure out what they want to believe from what they hear, not what they're told, right?
Most definitely.
Right on. Well, I definitely appreciate you taking time out of your life to join us today.
Thanks, Nick. I really, really appreciate being on.
Yeah, no problem.